All right, good evening. We're ready to get started. Maseches Yoma, Daf Gimel. We're starting 4 lines from the top of Daf Gimel, Amud Aleph. We have been analyzing a pasuk, and the pasuk that we've been analyzing can be found on the bottom of Beis Amud Aleph, or toward the bottom of Beis Amud Aleph. And part of the drasha there said that the word lechaper was speaking about Yom Kippur. And we're going to ask a whole host of questions tonight, one of which was a question that Michael asked last night about why don't we look at Rosh Hashanah as a paradigm to learn from. And I said, I don't know, because I hadn't learned Daf Gimel yet. But now that I've learned Daf Gimel, I can see the answer is going to be here. We'll get there shortly. So the Gemara opens with a question. Maybe the word lechaper isn't a reference to Yom Kippur, ve'ema atzeres to prishas shiva liyom echadhu. We saw this yesterday, that the model that we had been looking at is 7 days prior and then 1 day of holiness. We're going to separate, and we have this model here now with Atzeres. Atzeres is the Gemara's language of saying Shavuos. So it says the Gemara, you can't do that. Amar Rabbi Abba, done in par echad va'ayel echad, mi par echad va'ayel echad. We need the comparison in that pasuk that we saw in Beis Amud Aleph, the pasuk that refers to both Para Aduma and to Yom Kippur. We need them to have similar korbanos. That's why you can't learn from Atzeres, because Atzeres has different korbanos, Shavuos has different korbanos than Yom Kippur and Para Aduma. How does it play out? Lafuke Atzeres dishnei ayalim ninu. By Atzeres, by Shavuos, there's 2 ayalim, but those are different animals. By the other 2 korbanos, by Para Aduma and by Yom Kippur, it was Par Echad and Ayal Echad. Fine. So the Gemara says, Hanicha l'madamar Yom Kippurim, Ayal Echad, who I understand if you're going to say that by Yom Kippur it could be Ayal Echad, but Elalamand Amar Shnei Ayalim Ninhu, according to some, really there's 2 korbanos to bring, 2 ayalim that are brought by Yom Kippur. If that's the case, then it is comparable to Shavuos, which has 2 ayalim. So then Ma'ikal Meimar, and in fact, the Gemara details out how we could have assumed that maybe Yom Kippur has more korbanos. Why isn't it crystal clear how many korbanos there are by Yom Kippur? Go look in the Torah, look in the Psukim, see what happens. So says the Gemara, we tried, and it wasn't so simple. And the Tanaim have a machlokes about how many korbanos are brought on Yom Kippur. The Tanya, halfway down on Gimel Amud Aleph, the Brisa writes, Rebbe Omer, Ayel Echad hu ha'amor kan, hu ha'amor b'chumash ha'pkudim. It's the same aisle, and there's 2 psukim. One is in 2 different places in the Torah, and in these 2 different places in the Torah refers to an aisle by Yom Kippur. So when these 2 references to the aisle by Yom Kippur are mentioned, are they referencing 2 different ones, or are they referencing the same exact aisle? They're in different parts of Chumash. So says the Gemara, Rebbe says it's the same one. Aisle Echad hu ha'amor kan, aisle Echad hu ha'amor kan, and hu ha'amor b'chumash ha'pekudim. That's the same animal. However, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Omer Shnei Ayalim, the 2 separate psukim were to indicate that there wasn't 1 korban of an ayal on Yom Kippur. There were in fact 2. Echad ha'amor kan ve'echad ha'amor b'chumash ha'pekudim. So what do we see? That there are 2 ayalim that are for Yom Kippur. If that's true, well, you tried to tell me above that Atzeres, that Shavuos was not comparable to Yom Kippur because it had 2 ayalim over there by Atzeres and only 1 by Yom Kippur. But according to the Shita and the Brisa, Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon, that's not true. They both have 2 ayalim, so therefore, why would we not compare them? Says the Gemara, Afilu Tamer Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon. We could even answer within the Shita of Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon, Hasa. Over there, Chad l'chobas hayom v'chad l'musafin. No, by Yom Kippur, even according to Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, who says that he does bring 2 ayalim, but they're brought for 2 different halachic reasons. Halachic reason number 1 of one of the ayalim was l'chovas hayom, and the halachic reason number 2 is l'chovas hamusafin. So they were brought for different reasons, and therefore it's not 2 of the same korbanos. They're brought for different halachic reasons. Therefore, but Atzeres is different. And because even according to the Shita that says that both are ayalim by Yom Kippur and both are ayalim by Atzeres, but we still can't say that the pasuk is referring to Atzeres because the 2 ayalim that are referenced in regard to Yom Kippur within the Shita of Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, they have different chiyuvim. One is chovas hayom and one is chovas musafin. So the Gemara rejects that as a possibility. 4 lines from the bottom, the Gemara asks, maybe we should be able to compare to another holiday. Maybe we should say that 7 days before Rosh Hashanah, there's a chiyuv to be mafresh a kohen. Why would we not say that? Because I'm a Rabbi Abo, done in par v'ayel shalo, mi par v'ayel shalo. Because we have a comparison from the world of Yom Kippur to the world of Miluim. That's what Rashi here on the bottom points out, that the korbanos of Yom Kippur and the days of the Miluim of the Beis HaMikdash are the same. It's a par and an ayil, and it was brought shelo from the money of the Kohen. Lafuke Rosh Hashanah did Tzibur Ninu. So you can't compare. Yom Kippur is talking about the Kohen Gadol bringing a korban with his own money. Mashein came by Rosh Hashanah. It wasn't an individual's money. It was the money of the Tzibur. So says the Gemara, wait 1 second. You're right. If it were to be the case that it's true that the korban of Yom Kippur were to be brought by an individual, by the Kohen Gadol, then I'm asking with you, Michael and Meimar, then that would be very problematic because then everyone's bringing the same type of korban. Then Rosh Hashanah, which is Shel Tzibur, top 3 words. After then we can say the following. I could understand, says the Gemara, if you hold that way by Yom Kippur, that really it's only brought from the money of the Kohen Gadol. However, there is still a shita that says by Yom Kippur that it's Mishal Tzibor, Ma'ikal Meimar. The Tanya, what does the Brisa write to show us that it could be Shal Tzibor? When the Torah says Kach Lecha in general, that implies Mishalcha. When the Torah says V'asei Lecha, that also implies Mishalcha. However, when the pasuk writes V'yikchu Lecha in the plural, that's Mishal Tzibor, and that's the sheet of Divrei Rav Oshia. However, if Yonasan Omer, no, Bein Kach Lecha and Bein V'yikchu Elecha, whether or not it says Kach Lecha, take for yourself, or V'yikchu in the plural that they took and it was for you, they're all Mishal Tzibor. So we see that the shita of Rabbi Yonasan holds that the korban is Mishal Tzibor, even for the Kohen. So therefore, if that's true, then the case of Rosh Hashanah, which is a korban Shel Tzibor, and the case of Yom Kippur, which according to Rabbi Yonasan is a korban Shel Tzibor, now level playing field. Maybe we can assume that Rosh Hashanah is also a day that requires the hafrasha of a Kohen 7 days from his family. And the Brisa continues, according to the Shita of Rav Yonasan, who equates the singular of kach to the plural of v'yikhu, why then did the pasuk specify kach in the singular? You're coming up with this whole roundabout way to say that maybe the korbanos on Yom Kippur or Shel Tzibor, lav dafka, the words is kach. Why would you say the way that you're saying it? It's not true. It should be that it is only only from one person, only the Kohen's money if it says kach in the singular. So answers the Gemara with a beautiful idea. We're 6 lines down on Gimel Amud Aleph. Kaviyachol mishalcha, and he wrote, say yoser mishalahem. Really, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I really prefer that the korban come from the singular, but we're just not able to. Take a look at Rashi on the top line. Dibur hamaschel kaviyachol. Ani shamati. Here's how I heard pshat, says Rashi. Im hayat tzibur yachol his kaper b'shel yachid hayisi rotze. Hashem's like, if only it could be that way. The mechanics are not that way, but if only it could be that way, I would have loved to have gotten an individual korban. It's just not the way that the korban works. So that's what kach lecha means, that I prefer to be an individual korban, but it just can't be. And the Gemara also here presents in this brisa a similar limud to this kaviyachol that we just saw, a similar idea, which reads as follows: Abachanan Amar Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Kasav Echad Omer Ve'asisa L'cha Aron Eitz. One pasuk says that the Aron was made from the eights. Because of Echad Omer Ve'asu, not Ve'asisa, but Ve'asu Aron Atzei Shitim. So one pasuk says Ve'asisa, that the Aron was made from a singular person, and the other pasuk says it was Ve'asu, and they made it in the plural. Ha'ketzad. How is that possible? That's not possible. You got to pick one. It can't be made by one and by many. So answers the Gemara, you're right. Really, here's how it works. Kan bizman she'Yisrael osin ritzono shel makom. When the Yisrael are osin ritzono shel makom, then it's as if everyone did it together. However, kan bizman she'ein osin ritzono shel makom, when the Jews are not doing ratzon Hashem, so then it's as if it was only brought by Moshe and it's not representative of the people. So it's a musar to make sure that we're doing ritzono shel makom. Then the korban will be as though all of the Jews brought it together. End of scene, end of brisa. But this end of brisa is also the question that we started with, that maybe we should see a comparison between Yom Kippur and the world of Rosh Hashanah. How so? Because in the brisa we saw the sheet of Rav Yonasan, and Rav Yonasan said that the korban of Yom Kippur was brought by the tzibor, so too by Rosh Hashanah. Maybe we should equate the 7-day hafrasha that we see by Yom Kippur with Rosh Hashanah. So answers the Gemara, a quarter of the way down, Gimel Amud Beis. Nope, we are not able to do that. Ad kan lo pligi ela bekichos de alma ve'asiyos de alma. in general, when we use the word kicha and we use the word asiya, it has a particular reference. Kichos to alma, what's an example of kichos to alma? That's kach lechasamim, like by the Torah. Asiyos to alma, when we use the word asiyos, what is that talking about? Asay lecha shtei chatzos ketzef. By the Miluim, we have this pasuk that asay lecha, that you should be making your korbanos. Aval, Hanach, these two things that we have by the korbanos, the parva ayil, when we talk about the world of Yom Kippur and the world of Miluim, no, those are prushe kamefaresh de mishelchahu. In those cases, you can't compare to Rosh Hashanah because Yom Kippur and the Miluim were explicitly in the singular of the Kohen. Rabbi Yonasan wouldn't apply here. Rabbi Yonasan's idea that the word kach and vayikhu in the plural, that they mean the same thing, that doesn't apply here. By Yom Kippur and Miluim, it has to be that the korban of the Yom Kippur was brought individually. Where do we see this from? Says the Gemara, the Miluim michti. Let's take a look at what's going on by the Miluim. See, the pasuk writes, "Vel bnei Yisrael tadaber le'mor kichu shiur izim lechatas." It says kichu in the plural, and then it says vayomer al Aaron kach lecha egel ben bakar lechatas. So why does it say kichu and kach? Lamali. Why does it say that extra pasuk? Shma mina, that by the miluim kach lecha mishalchahu. So we see that area of halacha, when it comes to the miluim, that the korban must be brought by an individual. As well, 1/3 of the way down, says the Gemara, B'Yom Kippurim, when we're talking about Yom Kippur, and this is critical to our arguments in the Gemara. This is a lengthy question and answer here. B'Yom Kippurim, let's take a look at the psukim by Yom Kippur. See, the pasuk writes, B'zos yavo Aharon el hakodesh bepar ben bakar lechatat, that identifies what animal. And then let's talk about who's bringing it. Ume'es adas b'nei Yisrael yikach shnei si'irei izim lechatat. It says he should take. And then it says, "V'hikri bes parachatas asher lo." Lamali. Why am I repeating the fact that he's bringing the korban? Shma mina, high low. When it says low in the singular, what is it referring to? Mishalohu. That it's talking about the fact that one person is bringing it, and therefore, the Gemara says that even according to the Brisa on the top, which indicates that sometimes the word kach can mean plural, and therefore maybe we would have thought that the Yom Kippur korban was brought in plural, and therefore it's similar to Rosh Hashanah. Kamash Malan, not that way. That when it comes to Yom Kippur, based on the psukim, Shma Mina, it has to be that korban was brought only in the singular with the money of the Kohen. So that's answer number one to the Rosh Hashanah question as to why it doesn't match Yom Kippur in regards to the 7 days of Hafrasha. As well, halfway down, the Gemara presents another answer. Rav Ashi Omar, he also gives another answer that there's another lack of comparison between Rosh Hashanah and the world of Yom Kippur and Miluim. Done in par lechatas v'ayla ola, mi par lechatas v'ayla ola. However, those korbanos are different than le'afuke Rosh Hashanah ve'atzeres tetarvahu olos ninu. By the other korbanos by Yom Kippur, we were talking about a par for a chatas and an ayl for an ola. However, when it came to atzeres and when it came to Rosh Hashanah, there was no par. It was only the olos ninu. So therefore, no comparison. Ravina gives yet another answer as to why we can't compare Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. We're a little bit more than halfway down. Gimel Beis. Ravina Amar, done in avoda bekohen gadol me avoda bekohen gadol la'afuke kulhu kushyasan delav avoda bekohen gadol nenu. When we are comparing the world of Yom Kippur and Para Aduma, it has to be comparable to something else that's very similar. However, Yom Kippur and Para Aduma have something unique, which is that the avodah is only done by the Kohen Gadol. Masha'ein came with regular korbanos, like the one done Rosh Hashanah, lav dafka, that it was a Kohen Gadol. So the cases, again, are not comparable. V'ika de'amre, some say that Ravina's answer was a little different. What was the other possibility? Ravina danan avodah tchila me avodah tchila. La'afuke hani delav tchila ninu. This, we don't know what this means yet, but the Gemara says in the name of Ravina that we have to compare a case where the avodah was done tchila to another case where the avodah was done tchila, to exclude a case where it's not done tchila. My tchila, what are we talking about here? Says the Gemara, Ilema, if you want to say that tchila over here, that when it says it's Kohen Gadol, that it's talking about the fact that it was done by Kohen Gadol, that doesn't make any sense. Tainu Kamaitza, that was the previous version of Ravina that we just saw 5 lines ago. Ella, it must be tchilas avoda, it must be Ella avoda tchila b'makom, me avoda tchila b'makom. It has to be that we have to make sure that there's a comparison here, which is that the locations of the Korban for Yom Kippur was in a very unique place. It wasn't in the same place as the Rosh Hashanah Korban, and therefore they're not comparable. So then the Gemara is going to shift a little bit to analyze this pasuk that we saw again on Beis Amud Aleph. It's amazing how much real estate is taken up by the analysis of this one pasuk. It's really pretty remarkable just to figure out exactly how to understand Pshat in the pasuk. So now we're going to analyze it more. So it says the Gemara, we have a machlokes in the Amoraim as to how we should really understand that pasuk. We're about 5 lines before the middle width line on Gimel Amud Beis, 2/3 of the way down. Kiyasa Rav Dimi, Amar Rav Yochanan, Masnichada. He said that Rav Yochanan only learned one din from the pasuk that we are discussing. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Masni Tarte. Rabbi Yochanan Masnichada. What did Rabbi Yochanan learn? Or what was the one thing that Rabbi Yochanan learned? That when it said la'asos and lechaper, both words, he takes both words to mean one thing. La'asos and lechaper, elu ma'aseh Yom Kippurim. So he learns that the only time that we have this requirement for hafrasha, from separating a kohen, it's not by para aduma, it's at least not ladina, but it seems to only be by Yom Kippurim. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Masni Tarti says, no, we don't look at la'asos and lechaper as words that are set for one limud. We split those words and each of them get their own drasha. Masni Tarti la'asos elu ma'aseh para. He says that no, we need to separate out the kohen for 7 days before the para, and as well, lechaper, last of the shortest lines, lechaper elu ma'aseh Yom Kippurim. So that's how they break up the pasuk. According to Rav Yochanan, the words la'asos and lechaper are taught as the two words as part of one drasha. Masha'en kain, the second shita of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he says la'asos is one drasha and lechaper is another drasha. So asks the Gemara, this is impossible. Rav Yochanan masni chada. Rav Yochanan says that the pasuk is only talking about one thing, that only the kohen by Yom Kippur needs to separate for 7 days, but not by Para Aduma. How can that be? We have a Mishnah. Shivas Yamim Kodam Yom Kippurim, V'Shivas Yamim Kodam Serevas HaPara. Rabbi Yochanan, you cannot look at that pasuk and tell me that it's only talking about Yom Kippur, because after all, we have a Mishnah that explicitly states that we even need the 7-day separation of the Kohen prior to Para Aduma. If that's true, how can you tell me that the pasuk is not talking about this if the Mishnah clearly indicates that way? Answers the Gemara, a wild answer, Maila be'alma. No. By Yom Kippur, yes, formal requirement, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan says the pasuk is talking about. However, when it comes to Para Aduma, it's just a Maila be'alma. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's kind of like, some chasanim and kalas don't see each other for the week before. It's a nice thing to do. It's a great idea. Less fighting will take place if you don't see each other for the week before. Good. That's a dayenu. But is it le'ikuva? Is it a problem? Absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's mutter v'mutter, no problem at all. So, okay, the Para Aduma, it's beautiful. So you should separate the kohen because it's a good idea. So Rav Yochanan held shot like this in the pasuk. When it says la'asos lechaper, that's only telling you that midoraisa, you're obligated to separate the kohen from the pack. You're obligated to separate the kohen gadol from his family, only for Yom Kippur. But by Para Aduma, just Maila ba'alma, just a good idea. I asked the Gemara, hold on 1 second. Rav Yochanan says that only in the case of Yom Kippur do we have this requirement. That's impossible because on Daf Beis we learn the following line. We're at the second of the middle width lines. Amar Rav Yumi bar Chilkia, Amar Rav Mechasya bar Idi, Amar Rav Yochanan. All of this was said in the name of Rav Yochanan. Kasher asa bayom hazeh tziva Hashem la'asos lechaper aleichem. When this is a direct quote from Beis Amud Aleph. When this Gemara was quoted on Beis Amud Aleph, what did it say? Remember, we said that the Rav Yochanan over here learned la'asos and lechaper as one drasha. Look what he does here. La'asos on its own, elu ma'aseh para. Lechaper, elu ma'aseh Yom Kippurim, a stira within Rav Yochanan. The Rav Yochanan over here learned la'asos and lechaper, the two words of the pasuk are part of one drasha, only to indicate that Yom Kippur has a requirement of a fresh of the Kohen Gadol. However, the Rav Yochanan on Beis Amud Aleph, we're not that far into the Masech. That was a page ago. 1 page ago, Rav Yochanan said something else. We split la'asos and lechaper to indicate that both Para Aduma and Yom Kippur require 7 days of hafrasha. So if that's true, Sira and Rav Yochanan. Answers the Gemara, don't worry. Hahu de Rabbi. That comment that we just read right now, the comment where we do split the Para Aduma and Yom Kippur, where we say that both of them have a requirement of hafrasha, that was his Rebbe. We've seen this a number of times in Shas, Hahu Rabbe, and how, like we separate the Talmud from his Rebbe, that there are times that a Talmud can have a different shita than his Rebbe, whatever the halachos are, whatever the lamdas is, what the halachos are in regards to kavod of the Rebbe, not for now. But nevertheless, the Gemara indicates that his Rebbe held that way. His Rebbe held that there was a din d'oraisa for the Para Aduma to have hafresh of a Kohen Gadol, but he himself, Rav Yochanan, did not feel that way. How do we know this? Because the Chiyasa Rav Namar of Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yishmael, he quoted his Rebbe's name, La'asos Elamai Separa and Lechaper Elamai Siyam Kippur, but he himself didn't hold that way. He himself held that we don't split up the drasha, La'asos and Lechaper, the two of them are one drasha, only to indicate that Yom Kippur has a din to separate the Kohen Gadol, but Para Aduma does not have one as a chiyuv, but it's a ma'ila ba'alma. Amalei Reish Lakish to Rabbi Yochanan. I don't understand. How did you learn this out? Milun. You learned it out from the world of Milun. That from the world of Milun, we learn about Yom Kippur. Says Gemara, but I don't understand. It seems to be the case that it should be liikuva. If you want to say that Yom Kippur is liikuva, and that's what Rav Yochanan said, right? If that's true, that's a problem with our Mishnah, because what does our Mishnah say? Umaskinen lo kohen acher. The lo katani mafrishin. What does our Mishnah say? That we set aside a kohen. But if you look back on our Mishnah, it doesn't say mafrishin. All it says, just reading here from our Mishnah, it says umaskinen lo kohen acher tachtav. It does not say to separate him. It all only says to set aside. So, what?
Don't mafresh the second guy, or we're just saying that.
If you look in our Mishnah, which is speaking about Yom Kippur, all it says is in the second, third line of the Mishnah, it says mafrishin kohen gadol, umaskin lo kohen acher tachtav. It says mafrishin the kohen gadol, but it only says maskin lo kohen acher tachtav. Why does the language change? That's what the Gemara is bothered by. That our Mishnah starts with hafrasha and then switches to maskinin, and then it says in the next case, Rabbi Shomer af isha acheres maskinin lo shema tamus. That it's just setting aside. So the Gemara is bothered by that change in language. Let me just find where we are. So that's what the Gemara is bothered by. So he says, v'chitema, we're 6-7 lines from the bottom of the page. V'chitema hachanami v'atnanu maskinin lo kohen acher lo ktani mafrishin. Why did you change your language? V'chitani, and if you want to say my maskinin mafrishin, that what you mean when you say that you set aside a kohen is that you're mafrish the kohen, then just say that. Listening, o edi v'edi maskinin, o edi v'edi mafrishin. The fact that you change your language in the Mishnah, that makes Rav Yochanan's shita very difficult to say that it's le'ikuva in our Mishnah, that the requirement by Yom Kippur is an absolute. So the Gemara doesn't answer this question, but Rav Yochanan now bites back to Rav Shimon ben Lakish, to Rav Shimon ben Levi, excuse me, and he says as follows: Amarle, Elamar mehecha yalifle la. Where do you learn out Yom Kippur from? He says, well, I'll tell you where I learned it from. I got the precedent from Har Sinai, which is the greatest place to learn it from, when Moshe was going up to learn Torah. Amar, says the Gemara, Mi Sinai. That's where I learned it from. D'chsiv, the pasuk writes, "Vayishkon kvod Hashem al Har Sinai, vaychaseu ha'anon sheishes yamim, vayikra el Moshe bayom hashvi'i." He was separated for 6 days, and then he was called on the 7th day. So, Michti, let's analyze the pasuk. D'chsiv, vayikra el Moshe bayom hashvi'i. So it says he was called on the 7th day. My sheishes yamim. What's with the 6 days? We've been talking about 7 days of Afrasha. So Rabbi Shimon Levi learns out from here. What does it mean 6 days? Says the Gemara, Zeh bana'av shekol nechnes b'machan eshchina taun prishas shisha. So says the Gemara, God goes to show you that whenever you do something really holy, you need 6 days of Hafrasha. Says the Gemara, 6? V'ha'anan shivatnan. But our Mishnah says 7. So you're Rabbi Shimon Levi, you're giving me a pasuk about 6? What does that? It doesn't make any sense. Says the Gemara, something very beautiful. Mas Nisan, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirahi. Our Mishnah, which says 7, is adding a day to be choshesh for the shita of ben Beseira. Why? Dechayesh letumas beso, because he is concerned about tumas beso, of his wife becoming a nida. And nida oraisa, when a woman sees dam, she is a nida for 7 days. Now, today, we're more makbid than that. We have 5 days that we give for a minimum of 5 days for the actual menstrual cycle to take place. Even if the bleeding stops earlier than that, we still would require a woman to wait 5 days. And then after that, she waits 7 more days because of our concern of mixing the bloods of a zava and a nida. But mida oraisa, this is what the Gemara is referring to, is tumas beito. Really, technically speaking, for the kedusha shebo, then we want to make sure that if for the Kedusha Shabbat, we only need 6 days, but out of concern that his wife might become a Nida, so then we're going to wait a 7th day. Let's stop right here on the top of Daf Daled Amud Aleph at Amar Le Rav Yochanan, and we'll continue this story tomorrow and bring some proofs in the Brisa. Wishing you all a beautiful night. Take care.